The scene opens in a sun-drenched Italian piazza. Cobblestones gleam, Vespas buzz, and the aroma of fresh pasta fills the air. Here, amidst the vibrant chaos, lives Ella Moreau. She's no different from any other teenager, laughing with friends, struggling with algebra, and dreaming of her future. But Ella carries a secret, one she doesn't even know. She's the daughter of tech billionaire, Victor Moreau. Ella blends in perfectly, a testament to her father's desire for her to have a normal upbringing. She attends a local school, shops at the neighborhood markets, and argues with her best friend about the latest boy band. Her life is a carefully constructed illusion of normalcy, a shield against the dangerous world her father inhabits. Unbeknownst to Ella, shadows are gathering. A ruthless organization known as the Syndicate has set its sights on her. They see her as a pawn, a means to an end, a way to cripple Victor Moreau. Their plan is simple: kidnap Ella and bleed Moreau dry for ransom. Or, if he refuses, eliminate her to send a clear message. The Syndicate has been watching Ella for months, patiently observing her routines, identifying her weaknesses, and planning their attack. They know her schedule better than she does. They know her friends, her favorite cafe, the route she takes to school. They are lurking just outside her idyllic bubble, waiting for the opportune moment to strike and shatter her world forever. The clock is ticking, and Ella's ordinary life is about to be ripped apart. The Syndicate, a name whispered in the darkest corners of the world, operates with ruthless efficiency. They are not driven by ideology or revenge, but by cold, hard profit. Their network spans continents, weaving through governments, corporations, and criminal underworlds. They are masters of manipulation, experts in violence, and utterly devoid of conscience. At the head of the Syndicate is a man known only as Silas. A former intelligence operative, Silas is a ghost, a phantom figure who rarely appears in person. He orchestrates his operations from the shadows, using technology and intermediaries to shield himself from detection. He is a meticulous planner, anticipating every contingency and leaving no room for error. Silas sees Victor Moreau as a threat, a disruptive force in the world of technology. Moreau's innovations have challenged established power structures, and the Syndicate has been hired to neutralize him. Kidnapping Ella is not just about money. It's about sending a message, silencing a rival, and maintaining the status quo. The Syndicate's resources are vast. They have access to cutting-edge technology, a network of informants, and a team of highly skilled operatives. They are experts in surveillance, infiltration, and assassination. They have been meticulously gathering intelligence on Ella and Victor Moreau for months, preparing for this operation with painstaking detail. They are confident in their success, believing that no one can stand in their way. They are about to learn they are wrong. The attack comes swiftly and without warning. As Ella walks home from school, lost in thought about an upcoming dance, a black van screeches to a halt beside her. Two masked figures jump out, grabbing her roughly. Ella screams, but her cries are muffled by a cloth pressed over her mouth. Panic floods her system, but something unexpected kicks in. Months ago, at her father's insistence, she had begrudgingly taken self-defense classes. At the time, it seemed silly, a waste of her afternoons. Now, those lessons are her only hope. As the kidnappers try to force her into the van, Ella remembers a key move, a sharp kick to the knee. She executes it perfectly, connecting with one of her attackers. He howls in pain, momentarily releasing his grip. Ella uses the opportunity to break free, sprinting away as fast as her legs can carry her. The second kidnapper gives chase, but Ella is surprisingly agile. She weaves through the crowded streets, using her knowledge of the neighborhood to her advantage. She ducks down alleyways, jumps over fences, and disappears into the labyrinthine streets of the old city. She manages to lose her pursuer, but she knows she's not safe. They know who she is, where she lives, where she goes to school. Her life as Ella Moreau is over. She needs to disappear, to find help, to understand why she's being hunted. Little does she know, help is already on its way. A one-man wrecking crew named Frank. Frank is a man of few words and even fewer attachments. He's a ghost in the machine, a specialist in extraction and protection. His past is shrouded in secrecy, hinted at by the scars that crisscross his body and the haunted look in his eyes. He's seen things, done things that would make most people crumble. But Frank doesn't crumble. He endures. Victor Moreau knows Frank's reputation, knows his capabilities. That's why he hired him months ago to be Ella's silent guardian. Frank has been watching her from the shadows, a watchful protector, anticipating the inevitable storm. He blends seamlessly into the background, a face in the crowd, always alert, always ready. He's parked a block away from where Ella was attacked, monitoring the situation through a network of hidden cameras and informants. When he sees the van screech away, he knows the game has begun. He starts his engine, a powerful purr that hints at the raw power beneath the hood. Frank isn't just a bodyguard. He's a strategist, a tactician, a master of improvisation. He knows that the syndicate will be expecting him, will be prepared for a direct confrontation. So he won't give them one. He'll use their expectations against them, turning their strengths into weaknesses. He's about to rewrite their meticulously planned operation, turning it into a chaotic nightmare. Ella may be running for her life, but she's not alone. Frank is coming, and he's bringing hell with him. Ella, breathless and terrified, stumbles into a crowded marketplace, desperately trying to blend in. She scans the faces around her, searching for any sign of danger, any indication that she's still being followed. She doesn't know who to trust, where to go, or what to do. Suddenly, a hand grips her arm, pulling her into a nearby alleyway. Ella instinctively recoils, ready to fight, but then she sees him. Frank. His face is impassive, his eyes cold and calculating, but there's a sense of reassurance in his presence, a feeling that she's finally safe. "Come with me," he says, his voice low and gravelly. "We don't have much time." He leads her to a nondescript black sedan parked a few blocks away. It's not flashy, but Ella can sense the power humming beneath the surface. This is no ordinary car. As they speed away, Frank explains the situation, revealing the truth about her father, the syndicate, and the danger she's in. Ella is stunned, struggling to process the information. Her whole life has been a lie, a carefully constructed facade designed to protect her from a world she never knew existed. Now, she's thrust into the heart of that world, forced to confront a reality far more dangerous than anything she could have imagined. "Where are we going?" she asks, her voice trembling. "Away," Frank replies, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. Away from them, away from all this. He floors the accelerator, and the car roars to life, blurring the city into a kaleidoscope of colors. Their escape has begun, and it's going to be a wild ride. The Italian countryside becomes a blur of vineyards, olive groves, and ancient stone walls as Frank pushes the car to its limits. Ella clings to the passenger seat, her knuckles white, her heart pounding in her chest. The initial shock is wearing off, replaced by a growing sense of fear and adrenaline. In the rearview mirror, Frank spots them. 2 motorcycles and a black SUV, gaining ground fast. The syndicate isn't giving up that easily. "Hold on," he says, his voice calm but firm. "This is where the fun begins." He downshifts, the engine roaring in protest, and swerves onto a narrow, winding road. The motorcycles follow, their riders skilled and relentless. The SUV struggles to keep up, its larger size a disadvantage on the tight corners. Frank uses his knowledge of the terrain to his advantage. He drifts around hairpin turns, narrowly avoiding collisions with oncoming traffic. He slams on the brakes, causing the motorcycles to overshoot, then accelerates again, leaving them struggling to regain control. He spots a low bridge ahead and makes a split-second decision. He slams on the accelerator, aiming the car directly at the bridge. At the last moment, he yanks the steering wheel, sending the car into a controlled slide. The car barely squeezes under the bridge, but the motorcycles don't have time to react. They crash into the stone pillars, sending debris flying. The SUV, unable to stop in time, plows into the wreckage, its front end crumpling like paper. Frank glances in the rearview mirror, a flicker of satisfaction in his eyes. That should slow them down, he says, before flooring the accelerator once more, leaving the chaos behind them. But he knows this is just the beginning. The sun dips below the horizon, casting long shadows across the landscape as Frank pushes the car towards the Swiss border. They need a place to regroup, a place to lay low, a place to plan their next move. Frank knows just the spot. A secluded mountain cabin, owned by an old friend, a relic from his past life. The cabin is rustic and unassuming, nestled deep in the Swiss Alps. It's off the grid, powered by solar panels and a generator, far from the prying eyes of the syndicate. Frank's friend, a grizzled old mountain man named Hans, greets them with a warm smile and a hearty meal. As they eat, Frank tells Ella more about his past, about his time in special forces, about the missions he's undertaken, the people he's protected, the lives he's saved. He reveals glimpses of a life filled with danger and sacrifice, a life that has shaped him into the man he is today. Ella, in turn, shares her own story, her dreams, her fears, her hopes for the future. She talks about her friends, her family, her life before all this chaos began. She realizes how much she's taken for granted, how precious her normal life truly was. In the quiet solitude of the cabin, a bond begins to form between them. They are two strangers, thrown together by circumstance, forced to rely on each other for survival. They are an unlikely pair, but they are united by a common goal: to stay alive and to protect each other from the forces that are hunting them. But their respite is short-lived. The syndicate is closing in. The tranquility of the cabin is shattered by the sound of approaching helicopters. The syndicate has found them. Frank grabs Ella, shoving her behind a sturdy wooden table. "Stay down," he barks, his eyes scanning the windows. Hans, ever the loyal friend, grabs a hunting rifle and takes up a position by the door. The helicopters land in the clearing outside, and a team of heavily armed mercenaries storms the cabin. The air fills with the deafening roar of gunfire. Frank moves with lightning speed, using the furniture as cover, taking down the mercenaries one by one. He's a whirlwind of violence, a force of nature unleashed. He disarms them, incapacitates them, and eliminates them with ruthless efficiency. Ella, despite her fear, remembers her self-defense training. She grabs a fallen mercenary's knife and uses it to defend herself, surprising both Frank and the attackers. She's not just a damsel in distress. She's a survivor. Hans, despite his age, holds his own, picking off the mercenaries with well-aimed shots. But he's outnumbered, outgunned, and outmatched. He takes a bullet to the shoulder, collapsing to the floor. Frank, seeing his friend fall, unleashes a primal scream of rage. He charges into the fray, a one-man army, tearing through the remaining mercenaries. He fights with a ferocity born of desperation, fueled by the need to protect Ella and avenge Hans. The battle is brutal, bloody, and relentless. But Frank will not yield. He will not let the syndicate take them. He will fight to the death if necessary. With the cabin riddled with bullet holes and Hans wounded, Frank knows they can't stay. He helps Hans to a snowmobile parked behind the cabin. "Get him to safety," Frank instructs Ella, his voice grim. "Get him to the nearest town. I'll create a diversion." Ella hesitates, not wanting to leave Frank, but she knows he's right. Hans needs medical attention, and they can't both stay and fight. She helps Hans onto the snowmobile, her heart pounding with fear. Frank detonates a series of explosives he had strategically placed around the cabin, creating a wall of fire and debris that momentarily halts the syndicate's advance. He then grabs another snowmobile and roars off in the opposite direction, drawing the mercenaries away from Ella and Hans. Ella, with Hans clinging to her, navigates the snowmobile down the treacherous mountain slopes. The syndicate's helicopters pursue them, firing down from above. Ella swerves and ducks, narrowly avoiding the bullets. She's not a trained driver, but she's determined to survive. Frank, meanwhile, leads the mercenaries on a wild chase through the snowy wilderness. He uses his knowledge of the terrain to his advantage, leaping over ravines, dodging trees, and laying traps for his pursuers. He's a master of guerrilla warfare, turning the environment into a deadly weapon. One by one, the mercenaries fall victim to Frank's traps. Snowmobiles crash into trees, plunge into ravines, and explode in fiery balls of wreckage. Frank is a force to be reckoned with, a one-man avalanche of destruction. He's buying Ella and Hans time, giving them a chance to escape. Ella manages to reach a small town nestled at the foot of the Alps. She gets Hans to a doctor, who assures her that he will recover. Relieved but still terrified, Ella knows she can't stay. Frank will be looking for her, and the syndicate will be looking for both of them. Meanwhile, Frank, having decimated the mercenary force, makes his way down the mountain on foot. He's battered and bruised, but his resolve is unwavering. He finds a stolen car, hotwires it, and heads towards Germany. He knows an old contact in Berlin, a tech wizard who can provide them with new identities and a safe passage out of Europe. Ella, using the last of her money, boards a train heading north. She hopes to reach Berlin before the syndicate catches up to her. She's alone, vulnerable, and scared, but she's also determined to survive. She's no longer the naive teenager she once was. She's been forged in the fires of adversity, transformed into a resourceful and resilient young woman. Days later, Frank arrives in Berlin, contacting his old friend, Q, a quirky genius who can make anyone disappear. Q is hesitant to get involved, knowing the danger that Frank attracts, but he can't refuse an old friend in need. He sets to work creating new identities for Frank and Ella, arranging for a clandestine meeting in a safe house on the outskirts of the city. But the syndicate has eyes everywhere. They know Frank is in Berlin, and they're closing in fast. Ella arrives at the safe house first, a dilapidated apartment building in a rundown neighborhood. She's nervous, unsure of what to expect. She waits anxiously, peering out the window, watching for any sign of Frank or the syndicate. When Frank finally arrives, he's not alone. Q is with him, his eyes darting nervously, his hands fidgeting. "Something's wrong," Frank says, his voice low. "Q's been compromised." Q, his face pale, confesses that the syndicate got to him, threatening his family. He had no choice but to betray them. Frank is furious, but he knows that anger won't help. He needs to think fast to find a way out of this mess. Suddenly, the building is surrounded. The syndicate's mercenaries pour in, weapons drawn. Frank grabs Ella, shoving her behind a reinforced door. "Stay here," he says. "I'll handle this." He bursts out of the apartment, guns blazing, engaging the mercenaries in a fierce firefight. Q cowers in the corner, regretting his betrayal. He knows he's doomed. Frank fights his way through the building, clearing a path for Ella to escape. He uses his skills and experience to outwit and outmaneuver the mercenaries, turning the building into a deadly maze. He reaches Ella, grabbing her hand. "We need to go," he says. "Now." They race through the building, dodging bullets, leaping over obstacles, and fighting their way to freedom. They escape into the crowded streets of Berlin, disappearing into the anonymity of the city. But they know they're not safe. The syndicate is still after them, and they won't give up until they have Ella. Lost in the labyrinthine streets of Berlin, Frank and Ella try to shake off their pursuers. They weave through crowds, duck down alleyways, and blend into the urban landscape. They know the syndicate's mercenaries are still out there, hunting them. Frank spots a train pulling into a nearby station, heading towards Paris. "That's our ticket out of here," he says, grabbing Ella's hand. They race towards the train, dodging pedestrians and narrowly avoiding traffic. They manage to jump onto the train just as the doors are closing. They find an empty compartment and collapse into the seats, catching their breath. They're safe for now. As the train speeds towards Paris, Ella begins to question everything she thought she knew. She asks Frank why the syndicate is after her, what her father has done to provoke such a ruthless organization. Frank hesitates, knowing the truth will shatter her world even further. But he knows she deserves to know. He tells her about her father's revolutionary technology that threatens the syndicate's power. He tells her that she's not just a pawn. She's the key to unlocking a hidden fortune, a fortune that could change the balance of power in the world. Ella is stunned. She can't believe that her ordinary life was built on such a dangerous secret. She feels betrayed, angry, and scared. But she also feels a sense of determination. She won't let the syndicate use her. She will fight back, and she will protect her father's legacy. As the train hurtles towards Paris, Ella prepares for the next battle. As the train rumbles through the French countryside, Ella feels a growing sense of unease. She can't shake the feeling that they're being watched. She notices a man sitting across the aisle, his eyes constantly scanning the compartment. He looks familiar, like one of the mercenaries from Berlin. Ella discreetly alerts Frank, who immediately goes on high alert. He subtly checks the other compartments, confirming their worst fears. The syndicate is on board. Frank pulls Ella into the train's restroom. "They're here," he whispers. "We need to find a way to lose them." He examines the small space, searching for an escape route. He spots a maintenance panel on the ceiling. "This might be our only chance," he says. He hoists Ella up, helping her to pry open the panel. They climb into the cramped space above the ceiling, crawling through the dusty ventilation ducts. They navigate the narrow passages, listening for any sign of their pursuers. As they crawl, Ella notices something taped to the inside of the duct. A small, encrypted message. She recognizes the code. It's her father's. She carefully peels off the message, her heart pounding with excitement. It's a message meant for her, a message that could change everything. She knows she needs to decipher it, but not now. Now they need to escape. The syndicate is closing in, and the train is about to become a battlefield. The mercenaries burst into the restroom, weapons raised. Frank and Ella are trapped. With no other option, Frank kicks out a panel leading to the roof of the train. He hoists Ella up first, then follows, scrambling onto the speeding train's roof. The wind whips around them, making it difficult to stand. The mercenaries emerge from the restroom, opening fire. Frank returns fire, using the train's ventilation shafts as cover. Ella, despite her fear, realizes she needs to decipher her father's message. She pulls out the small piece of paper and begins to work, using the code she learned from him as a child. The message is complex, a series of numbers and symbols that seem meaningless at first. As she deciphers, the train enters a tunnel, plunging them into darkness. The mercenaries close in, their footsteps echoing on the roof of the train. Frank fights them off, but he knows they can't hold out for long. Suddenly, Ella shouts, "I've got it!" She's deciphered the message. It reveals the location of a hidden vault, containing a vast fortune accumulated by her father over the years. The syndicate isn't just after her. They're after the money. The message also contains a warning. The vault is protected by a series of deadly traps. Only someone who knows the code can safely access it. Ella is the key. Now they know what they're fighting for. Knowing they need to get off the train, Frank searches for a way to slow down the syndicate. He remembers seeing the coupling mechanism between the carriages. He decides to detach the rear carriages. He tells Ella to stay put and makes his way towards the rear of the train, fighting off mercenaries as he goes. The fight spills into the passenger carriages, causing chaos and panic. Passengers scream and scramble for cover as Frank battles the mercenaries with brutal efficiency. He reaches the coupling mechanism and begins to work, dodging bullets and fending off attacks. He manages to disconnect the rear carriages, sending them careening down the tracks behind them. The sudden jolt throws the remaining mercenaries off balance, giving Frank a momentary advantage. He races back to Ella, grabbing her hand. "We need to jump," he says. He finds a relatively safe spot near the front of the train and prepares to jump. He knows it's risky, but it's their only chance. He counts down, 3, 2, 1. Jump! They leap from the train just as it enters a tunnel, landing hard on the grassy embankment. They roll to a stop, bruised and battered, but alive. They watch as the train disappears into the tunnel, leaving the syndicate behind. They've bought themselves some time, but they know the syndicate will be back. They need to reach Paris, find the hidden vault, and secure the fortune before it falls into the wrong hands. Their journey is far from over. Arriving in Paris, Frank knows they need a place where they can prepare for the final confrontation, a place where they can use the environment to their advantage. He chooses the catacombs, a vast network of underground tunnels and ossuaries beneath the city. The catacombs are a labyrinth of darkness and death, a maze of narrow passages and hidden chambers. They are the perfect place to set a trap for the syndicate. Frank uses his knowledge of explosives and guerrilla warfare to create a series of deadly obstacles. He sets tripwires, rigs collapses, and lays down booby traps. As they venture deeper into the catacombs, Ella is unnerved by the sheer number of bones surrounding them. Frank reminds her they must focus, telling her that it's not just about the money anymore, it's about stopping the syndicate from using her father's technology for evil. Silas, leading the syndicate, arrives in Paris, determined to capture Ella and claim the fortune. He sends his mercenaries into the catacombs, unaware of the deadly traps that await them. One by one, the mercenaries fall victim to Frank's traps. They trigger tripwires, causing tunnels to collapse. They stumble into hidden pits, filled with sharpened bones. They are picked off by Frank, who moves through the darkness like a ghost. The catacombs become a deadly playground, a battleground where the living fight among the dead. Frank and Ella are ready for the final showdown, determined to stop the syndicate once and for all. Silas, enraged by the loss of his men, corners Frank and Ella in a vast chamber filled with skeletal remains. "It's over, Frank," he sneers. "There's nowhere left to run." Frank stands protectively in front of Ella, his eyes locked on Silas. He knows this is the final battle. He uses his tactical skills, surveying the room. "It's not over until I say it is," Frank retorts. Silas unleashes his remaining mercenaries, who swarm towards Frank and Ella. Frank fights with everything he has, using his martial arts skills and his knowledge of the catacombs to his advantage. Ella, remembering her self-defense training and the lessons she's learned from Frank, joins the fight. She's no longer just a damsel in distress. She's a warrior. She uses her agility and resourcefulness to take down the mercenaries, surprising even herself with her courage. Frank finally confronts Silas, engaging him in a brutal hand-to-hand combat. The two men trade blows, each determined to defeat the other. The fight is fierce and unrelenting, a clash of wills and skills. Just when it seems like Silas has the upper hand, Ella intervenes, distracting him long enough for Frank to gain the advantage. Frank delivers a final, decisive blow, knocking Silas unconscious. With Silas defeated, the remaining mercenaries surrender. Frank and Ella have won. They've stopped the syndicate and protected the hidden fortune. But their journey is not quite over. They still need to find the vault. Using the code from her father's message, Ella navigates the deadly traps protecting the hidden vault. She and Frank finally reach the vault door, a massive steel barrier adorned with intricate carvings. Ella enters the final sequence, and the door slowly grinds open, revealing a vast chamber filled with stacks of gold bars, piles of diamonds, and rows of safety deposit boxes. Ella is overwhelmed by the sheer wealth before her. She realizes the power and responsibility that come with such a fortune. She decides to use the money for good, to fund her father's research, to help those in need, and to fight against organizations like the Syndicate. With the fortune secured, Frank knows his job is done. He says goodbye to Ella, knowing that she's capable of handling whatever challenges lie ahead. He disappears back into the shadows, ready for his next mission, his next assignment. Ella, now a changed woman, embraces her new destiny. She uses her newfound resources to create a foundation dedicated to fighting injustice and promoting technological advancements for the benefit of humanity. She steps out of the shadows and into the light, ready to make a difference in the world. The story ends with Ella visiting her father, who is now in hiding, safe from the Syndicate. She tells him about her adventures, about Frank, and about her plans for the future. He smiles, proud of the strong, independent woman his daughter has become. He knows that she will use her power wisely, for the good of all.